Well, hello there. This is your host, Charlotte Bergman, again for Political Talk with Charlotte. And this is going to be a fantastic show because we have a live guest today. And not only is he alive, he is very, very interesting, full of enthusiasm. He is the vice president of Premier Bank. And if I mispronounce that, he's going to pronounce it for me correctly when he comes on the show. There he is. He he's a state coalition leader for Arkansas Jumpstart, which does financial literacy education advocacy, kindergarten through college, as well as the second congressional district minority leader for the Republican Party of Shelby County. Hey, guys, we got another Republican in the House. Okay. His name is THURLO T. COBB, Regional Vice President, Premier. Okay, let's bring him in. I'm blown at the whole time, but you're going to correct me. Let's do it. Let's get started. Thanks for joining us today. We have some great people who are listening. We have Nani already commenting. Hi, Nani. Good that you joined us. You are fantastic. Thank you for holding down the tent and for fighting for Memphis and Shelby County. Okay, we'll turn it over to our guest. Good morning. Go ahead and correct me in those.
Well,
I
first
used
of all,
to like to practice, but I didn't get a chance to practice this. Okay.
that's fine. Charlotte, first of all, thank you for having me on this morning. Now it's noon, so I guess it will be afternoon, but it is a pleasure to be here. I had the pleasure of talking with you the last time I was doing some work over in Memphis, and so just to correct, I am the regional vice president over at Primerica Financial. Here,
Primerica.
Primerica, yes, here in downtown Little Rock. But you're a kindred spirit because the work that you're doing there in Shelby County with the Republicans there and reaching out to communities that typically have not been connected to the Republican Party, my hat is tipped to you, and you share a lot of the things that I hold dear, and that's one of the things we wanted to talk about today is the fact that in my various hats that I wear outside of working in the financial industry and being the second congressional district minority chair for the Republican Party of Arkansas. I also volunteer with Arkansas Jumpstart Coalition, which we just here the other day set some new opportunities to engage with students 9th through 12th grade to teach financial literacy, advocate for financial literacy. We're doing a few more activities next week in that effort. And I also volunteer with 100 Black Men of Greater Little Rock. And so a big part of that effort is also in the area of financial literacy, economic development with young men. So these are all things that are near and dear to my heart.
I'm looking forward to what you're going to do for the young people. Now, I want to say very quickly the shutdown is over. 2026 is going to bring about a golden age in the United States of America, and jobs are going to be plentiful. I am predicting that right now. I have the confidence that that's going to happen. But you are preparing our people. President Trump mentioned the other day that they're allowing, I think, 600 Chinese students into the country. They're also going to allow some H-1B visa recipients to come. Why? Because our people are not ready to take over the responsibilities and the needs of business owners. But what you're doing is teaching the young people to be able to have that confidence, the ability to be able to step forward, take on some responsibility, take on jobs, whether it's in the entrepreneur environment or they're working for someone else. So take it from there, Thurlow.
Absolutely, absolutely. So one of the things that's very encouraging, Charlotte, is a lot of recent data has come in with the Gen Z workforce. A lot of them are choosing entrepreneurship. A lot of them are choosing to get into the trades. A lot of them are choosing a more direct path to get into the workforce, which is good long term. But because there is a lot of new investment and development in our nation right now in various industries, whether it's IT and or the energy industry, so on and so forth, whether we're talking about data centers or we're talking about building out things for AI, they're going to need nuclear power plants and natural gas generation and all these different things. But you're correct. There's going to be a huge need for talent, and these are going to be jobs and positions and entrepreneurial opportunities that are going to pay well. And so, one of the big things that's going to be needed in the next 5 to 10 years is the backdrop or the foundation of financial literacy and basic financial principles. Because what good does it do to a person to go out and make 100, 200, 300,000 a year, but be just totally ignorant about their finances and not do a great job with those finances to build a foundation for their family and to help build our economy. And so, one of the things that you and I talked about is that as the second congressional district minority chair here in Arkansas, we want to do more outreach in communities that in the last 50, 60, 70 years have not been traditionally connected to the Republican Party. And so as a black person in Arkansas who did not grow up having a relationship with very many Republicans or folks that voted conservative or advocated for being a conservative, I kind of had to find my way the hard way. And so, in the last several years, as I've been working to do things here within the party here in Arkansas, and that's one of the reasons why you and I connected recently, is because we talked about this is not just an Arkansas problem. This is a challenge we face nationwide. How do we find a way to connect uh, black folks who are typically going to be more conservative culturally to the messaging and the foundation of the Republican platform? And so I started brainstorming with some of the folks here, and we started kind of coming up with a platform called the You Have Options platform. And so basically, I'm just going to summarize what that platform looks like. But what it looks like is an opportunity to have a conversation with the community and say, hey, here is the historical posture that the Republican Party's had at local levels all the way to the national level during the whole course of history, starting in the 1860s and the Civil War, all the way up until current time. And here are some of the key figures who have been a part of that history. Because a lot of times, at least when I was in school, we didn't really learn the connection of the Republican Party really in depth as far as what it meant to us in the course of civil rights, ending slavery, ending Jim Crow, all the other factors that are involved when we look at history, 1860s to now. We never were really exposed to a lot of that in a deep and meaningful way. So we want to look at that. What about the fact that when you talk about 2025, what's appealing to most Black Americans, especially Black males? Uh, I would say 60 and under, those who are in the workforce. Well, we want to make sure we, number one, have effective and practical education. What do we mean by effective and practical? Education does not mean just learning, poetry and literature, which all those things are well and good. But what are the things that are going to allow us to function well in a capitalist economy? So we talk about effective and practical education, including financial literacy, the trades, vocational education, soft skills training. So if we end up being in corporate America, we understand how to navigate in that world, as well as training the basic fundamentals of free market capitalism. That's effective and practical training, something that we can actually take and use to enrich ourselves, our families, and our community. Number two, economic development, fostering, facilitating increased entrepreneurship, an increase of the embracement and adoption of careers in the trades, as we talked about a moment ago, utilizing all the available resources in your community. Why do I say all available resources? Every community is different. What we have here in Arkansas is going to be slightly different than what you guys have in Shelby County as far as people resources, physical resources. Um, you, you're going to have different things, East Coast, West Coast, in the North, in cities, in rural areas. But utilizing those available resources to build the economy from the ground up, okay? Economic development. So, entrepreneurship, embracing of the trades, making sure you're taking advantage of that, real estate development, real estate ownership, okay? Number three, rebuilding of the black family and the social infrastructure by educating and engaging, especially young youth and young adults, about the financial, mental health, strategic benefits of having a nuclear family. Okay, a lot of people don't understand that back in the 19 teens and 1920s, before the Great Depression, most families in the black community were nuclear families, mom, dad, and there were lots of entrepreneurs, there were lots of merchants, lots of business owners. We had higher levels of achievement, education, lots of things were. That's why with the term Black Wall Streets come in, you have these all over the country. Why? The nuclear family had a lot to do with that. It was a stable foundation. So there are financial, there are mental health, there are lots of there are social benefits of having a nuclear family. We have to educate on that, and we have to engage young folks on that so they can understand what that really looks like. And then number four, I believe that the federal government is inherently inefficient. Okay, a streamlined federal government means assigning more attention, resources, and funding at the state and local levels, where that attention and resources and dollars are closer to the problem. Therefore, we're able to create more effective impacts with measurable results that can be evaluated quantitatively and qualitatively. Most of the time, what I see when I talk to folks in the community is they say, hey, uh, this program and that program has been around 40, 50, 60 years, but we still have poverty in our communities. We still have illiteracy in general. We have financial illiteracy. We still have crumbling infrastructure. We still have kids that are getting to 11th to 12th grade and can't do basic math and can't read. We have healthcare situations that haven't been addressed. We have all these issues, but we've had all these programs 40, 50, 60 years. I was talking with a good friend of mine here about 2 or 3 weeks ago to this very topic. Look at all when I started in kindergarten, first, second, third grade. That's kind of the time where you saw these feeding programs in schools. It started off with just lunch, and then they went to breakfast, and now they've got breakfast, lunch. They got backpacks on the weekends. They're doing well. Does anybody stop and ask the question, why does Billy not have any food at home? Why does he need a backpack on the weekend and in the summer to take home for food? I'm not knocking Billy because he's hungry. I'm just asking the question, why is it that Billy doesn't have any food at home? We do coat drives and clothing drives. Why does Billy not have a coat? Why does Billy have these deficiencies at home? Why are we not addressing the root causes of these deficiencies? There's all these programs at the federal level that put money into things, and the problem still persists 50, 60 years later. Well, maybe that program isn't necessarily working because it's so far away from the problem that people are just containing the problem so that they can profit off the problem. At least it seems that way. Those are conversations that are being had in our community. So, as conservatives, as Republicans, if we keep these basic tenets as part of our messaging, capitalism, entrepreneurship, financial literacy, economic development by utilizing all your available resources. This is messaging that resonates for all America. It's not just Black America, it's all America. But culturally and historically, Black Americans have been hard workers, very patriotic, entrepreneurs at heart, looking to how they can build from within. They have a natural desire to do that culturally. So why are we not reaching out to those individuals that have that mindset and saying, hey, we in the Republican Party, we as conservatives, we as Frederick Douglass conservatives, as Booker T. Washington conservatives, that say, hey, let's take our skills and resources and build our economy from within for all communities, including Black America, and let's grow our country. Let's move forward. We got a president in place, we got Congress in place that can help get these things done at the federal level, but let's come down to the state and local level and get these types of things done. So those are the kinds of things that we've been talking about. And as the second congressional district minority chair here in Arkansas, we're working to put this together in a package so we can kind of take on the road and perfect it, and then we can share it with others.
So, how long do you think it's going to take for you guys to bring it across the bridge to Memphis?
My game plan is to do some test runs in January, February, and be ready to bring it across the bridge by March, April.
Count me in. I want to help. I want our people to excel. I want them to have the confidence to become entrepreneurs, to be able to manage their finances. I'll tell you what, Sometimes it just takes a small explanation to young people and people about being financially responsible. I, I, I have three children. I did not talk to my older two children about financial responsibility. I spoke with my youngest, and I tell you what, he he listened to mommy. And sometimes all it takes is just talking to people, letting them know that that possibility to fulfill their dreams, to live their dream, is primarily centered around these things that you're discussing about financial independence and the ability to be able to understand how to understand and to work and to make sure that your finances are in order. To become an entrepreneur, you're going to need to be able to be financially responsible and, and all of those other issues that we're discussing. So I'm excited about what you guys are about to do, and I'm excited about the fact that please forgive my vernacular, but that you're no dummy. You understand, you understand that we are involved with a party that actually cares. We're not the party of death. We're not the party that wants to kill everybody. We are the party that wants to lift people up. And I know you're not here to advocate for a party per se, but that vehicle gives people the inspiration to be able to excel and to do better.
And I'll say this as well, Charlotte, is this. When I'm having conversations with folks about party, in fact, I just had this conversation with someone yesterday. Um, they actually happen to live in Shelby County because they were curious. They know my stances and things that I do. And so they were asking the question. They were like, hey, how do you describe, because she sees it on television, they say red or blue states or red or blue this or left or right this. What does it really mean when you say conservative and liberal? And we're just having a conversation. And one of the things we try to always differentiate is there's a difference between conservative policies, okay, conservatism as a philosophy, as a way of life, versus the personalities of a party. A lot of times folks get so caught up in the personalities. They like this person, they dislike that person, and they'll say, well, this person said this or acts this way, or and I use this as an analogy when we talk about folks who are believers, okay? And so the foundation of Christians is the Bible. And so the Bible has some very specific things that it lays out that says, hey, if this is how you roll, then you're a Christian, you're part of the family, okay? Now, as humans who are imperfect, we don't as personalities always live up to those ideals. Even when we really make a great effort to, we don't always live up to those ideals. And so for someone to say, well, Christianity is not, any good because imperfect people are still imperfect even as well, that we knew that on the front end. That's the whole point of Christianity. We're imperfect people that are trying to live out these ideals. Well, the Republican Party as a party has a foundation called the platform, and those platforms are those ideals. And if you look at those ideals, a large percentage of Black America, if they were to read and understand those principles, are like, hey, I'm in alignment with at least 70%, 80%, 90% of this platform. Well, if you're in alignment with 70 to 90% of something, then you probably should not be voting for something that's not in alignment 70 to 90% of the time.
Exactly.
But but because they don't know what that platform is, and because we've done a very poor job as conservatives, as the Republican Party, of educating the public on what that platform is, on what it is that we stand on, and helping people to differentiate conservatism versus the personalities of the conservative movement. And if you really understand it that way, you'll understand people are fallible. People are not perfect. We're gonna slip up. We're gonna make mistakes. We're gonna have missteps. But the foundational principles, you can't argue with it. It's like math. 2 plus 2 is always gonna be 4. You can't really argue with
Except in this new math. I have
it.
couple of people who have made comments, and I'm going to read them. And maybe if you feel so inclined, please comment on their statements. Nani says, "You're so right about people profiting off a problem, so they really don't want the root cause of the problem solved. Greed. That's what she's saying the root cause of the problem is. So sad the people who need help the most are exploited." Would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, yeah. I would, because I really think that this is the conversation we have to have if we're going to have an honest conversation in communities, especially in minority communities. Because I grew up in the hip hop era, and we had a phrase we always used to say, still use. We like to keep it real. Well, if you're going to keep it real, we have to be honest and say, hey, look, there are a lot of things that happen at the federal levels of government, whether it be through programs, outreaches, I'm using air quotes, that really it's become an industry. Okay. Uh, when we talk about things like feeding programs and housing and, helping kids after school programs, even you can take this a little bit further. A lot of people think that the issue that conservatives have with DEI is the actual DEI, and that's really not it. Okay, the issue comes in when you have these different programs that are in place, where it becomes its own, the problem, the issue becomes its own industry. Okay, I when you have not for profits and NGOs where there's hundreds of millions of dollars flowing through, and the problem still persists 40, 50, 60 years later. Or in the case of DEI, where you have private companies that are spending 3%, 5%, 7% of their budget on DEI initiatives, and these are publicly traded companies, okay? A publicly traded company, their number one thing is to make a profit. And so, where is the DEI section of expenditures generating more profit? Now, if you can show shareholders where this is like making them more money, then of course they're going to be like, yay. But when you talk about a big portion of the budget, it becomes its own thing. And a lot of people end up advocating for things because they're benefiting financially. So if you say, hey, feeding program, clothing program, after school program, this program, but what are we doing to get the family back together so there's mom and dad there with two incomes coming in, or at least one strong income and somebody there to do childcare so that family can be more whole so we can have better outcomes? What are we doing to make sure that the kids can actually read and do math so they can be productive in society? What are we doing to make sure that regulations come down so that we can just go out and build more housing and housing prices will come down naturally because there's more inventory? We're so worried about down payment assistance and this program and that program. Well, what about just putting more inventory online so people can naturally afford it? How about helping people be better equipped to have better paying careers in areas that already pay more money, versus saying we've got to keep raising minimum wages, and so my hamburger now costs $25 because you're trying to pay the guy that's frying the fries and shaking the shakes, a living wage. A living wage is, hey, let's reskill this guy in the next 6 months to a year to do HVAC, welding, uh, uh, IT, AI, whatever. Even in my industry, in the financial industry, it doesn't require a college degree. Anybody that's 18 or over that can pass a criminal background check and get licenses in the financial industry. It's a career. There are lots of careers that don't require years and years and years of college and lots of money. There's Job Corps, for example, great program. It's a government program. Why don't we talk about that more? That goes, 16 to 24 years old, I think it is, and you can go learn a trade and get paid and come out with a career. So there's so many different things out here. CDL, truck drivers, barbers, beauticians. Yeah, there's so many. And with technology, there's so many things that used to be kind of difficult to do. You can just do them. So my bigger point is we've got to start talking to people. Hey, we got all these programs, all these different things where people are making money, making a living, creating careers off the pain and suffering. Can, you know, let's do something about the root cause.
Yes. Pam has a comment. Actually,
Yeah.
she has two. I'm going to present them. She says they're throwing federal money at problems in blue cities. All the other problems are have All the other problems are from Steve Cohen, who wants $350,000 for a train from Memphis to Atlanta. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but basically, she's talking about blowing federal money on things that are some totally irrelevant. Here's her other comment. She says 501c3s are big money, and they are for nonprofits. CEOs make millions, and politicians get kickbacks. Comments?
Can't argue. Can't argue because again, when you look at how many of these organizations, um, here's perspective. When I sit down, if I go to a barbershop or I'm just out in the community and I hear people talking about starting a business, now there there is a place for not for profits. Okay, and I'll use this as an example of how they traditionally have been in our nation. Someone goes out and does a for profit business, is super successful, and says, you know what, God has truly blessed me. I've done great in business. I've got more wealth than I need personally. I see issues in my community that need to be addressed. Let me start a or some not for profits to address these issues that I see. And because I really don't need the money, okay, they can be lean, mean, and efficient and really tackle that problem, that situation. Okay. But what I see a lot of times in the last probably 20, 25 years is where a person who's hurting financially says, you know what? Because the government has all this money just sitting around, just waiting for people to go get it. Because that's what I've always heard growing up. Because we were around a lot of people who talk this way. The government just has all this free money just sitting around. I'm gonna start me a non for profit to get some of this free government money, and it doesn't matter whether my service or my product is actually solving anything, is competitive, it is doing what it needs to do, but I get this grant money every year, every 2 years, every 5 years. But is it actually really addressing what it's supposed to address? What are the measurables, quantitatively, qualitatively, that this is doing what it's supposed to do? So my point is this: if you have a non for profit and it's really meeting a need and it's hats off, okay, more power to you. But we know that that's not the case in a lot of cases. That there's profitability in the pain and misery. Kind of like if our healthcare industry, if we're honest, there's a lot of pain and misery in our healthcare industry, and there's a lot of folks profiting off of that versus helping people not get sick in the first place. I mean, that's a whole nother Geraldo, but I'm just saying there's so many areas, and that's the reason why conservatism is important in 2025. We know that inherently, the bigger something gets, the less efficient it's going to be. And that's all I'm trying to say is if you're going to do these not for profits, if you're going to have these programs, let's focus those dollars and resources closer to the actual issue so that we can kind of look and really see is it addressing the issues that we see. But if we're having feeding programs for 77 years and kids are still hungry and they still don't have a coat in the wintertime and they still can't read and they still can't do math and folks can't find an affordable place to live and their wages are too low for them to live a lot, and on and on and on, if the problem still keeps persisting generation after generation, we got to change our approach. We have
Thank,
to.
thank you. Thank you. So, how can supporters get in contact with you to help with you have options platform or to help you to bring it our way? How can they get in
Absolutely.
contact with you?
Yeah. The best way to reach me is T_T_COBB at hotmail.com. That is T_T_COBB at hotmail.com. One more time, T_T_COBB at hotmail.com. I really look forward to connecting with your ethos, with your village, because again, we've got to learn to work together, not always reinvent the wheel, so that we can be more effective.
So, guys, you have it. You have the email address before you. Let's get involved. Let's help make this plan a reality, bring it to Memphis, Shelby County, and also encourage growth in Arkansas and around the country. This is an answer to the problems that our young people have. They don't have a vision. You know, the Bible says A man without a vision perished. So we have to work with platforms like what THURLO has in order to help these people to realize their vision and then to make it a reality. We've got to, in any way possible, and I believe the answers are there to improve our community, to make it better, not just for us or our immediate families, but for those who will not have the answers available to them immediately without programs like what Thurlow COBB has and other organizations that can help our young people. Let's not raise let's not raise a group of people to go into the future with these same thoughts and attitudes that our young people appear to have today, not really having direction and falling prey to gang members and various people who appear to give them a reason for living, but it's not actually going anywhere and helping with their future. So, is there anything else you want to say before we end this show? I would just want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. You just didn't start your day with this show. Based upon what I've been told, you've been busy all morning and
Yeah,
have things
yeah, yeah. Pretty busy day, but this time of the year is like that. But I consider it an honor,
thank you.
and I do have a closing thought because you just brought up something I do want to kind of put a big bow on what we talked about today, and that is this: when we talk about why young folks are attracted to things like gangs and gang culture and criminal culture, uh, two big things. Number one, gangs are good at recruiting. Crime and criminal groups and elements are good at recruiting. And number two, they're great at leadership. Now, I'm not saying gangs are great. I'm not saying the criminal elements are great, but they are good at those two things. And that is something right now that's lacking in our community, not just the black community and brown community, but just in, urban areas and rural areas alike. When we talk about young folks that are left behind because they don't have options career wise to go out and make a living, or they're in a situation where industry is left where they are and they're left with fewer options. Gangs and the criminal element do a great job of recruiting those usually young men into that element and giving them something to belong to, be a part of. And we as conservatives, we as Republicans have to remember that we have to have messaging that can go into a community and say, hey, if you want to be something and you want to be somebody, we know statistically being a part of a gang or being a criminal is not going to get you there. But we have a platform that involves these elements we just talked about today that gives you the opportunity to be your best self, where you can live that baller lifestyle that you really dream about being. You have the opportunity to do that without becoming a criminal, without becoming a gang member. And that's what conservatism can bring to the table if we are diligent and intentional in our messaging.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And as he indicated earlier, strengthening the families, these gang members actually make these young people think that they're a part of a family and that makes them feel like they belong. Thank you so much for spending the time with us. We appreciated you, the comments that I've received, and other people who are listening. Uh, that shows me that they are concerned and they care and they appreciate what you're sharing. I will be in contact with you. So thank you so much and God bless you. Remember, his email address is scrolling on the screen, T_T_COBB at hotmail.com. God bless you and you have a wonderful day.
I sure will, Charlie. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you and bye bye.